Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. People who hate Muslims are in a really bad spot. They're in a real catch-22 situation because the Muslims are the youngest population in the world, have the highest fertility rates in the world. In some countries, it's astonishing the extent to which Muslims are outpacing non-Muslims in terms of having babies. And the capitalist system needs you to have babies. But at the same time, the capitalist system discourages you from having babies because they want you to work. And people who are parents tend to be a lot more frugal with their money. So they, 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 they need you to have babies because they need you to produce workers for them and they need you to produce consumers for them. But at the same time, the way the system is set up, they make it difficult for you to have babies. It's costly, it's expensive to have kids. And like I said, as a consumer, you're more frugal. You're concerned with your savings and taking care of your family's necessities. So they're in a catch-22 in that regard, in that their own societies are not producing enough children. They're not reproducing. They're not replenishing their population. So they're in trouble in that regard. And then, like for example, not just the West, but like in India. I don't know if you know this, but like right now, the largest single Muslim population in the world is in Indonesia. But within 2 or 3 decades, it's not going to be Indonesia anymore. Indonesia is going to be the third largest Muslim population in the world, and the largest population will be in India. And they hate us. They hate Muslims. Uh, but what can they do? The Muslim population is growing at a faster rate than anybody else. So it's an inevitability that the Muslims are going to outnumber non-Muslims in many countries. In Europe, they don't want Muslims to come to Europe. They don't want Muslim immigration. But immigration is the only thing that can save their economies. But they don't want Muslims. And there's too many of us. We're the only ones who are even producing a population that could be immigrants for you. Because even the other countries that are non-Muslim countries, they're not producing enough people for themselves. So they're really in a catch-22. That's like the double catch-22. And then the triple catch-22 is that they can't help but want to deprive Muslims, like say again in India. They want to deprive Muslims of rights. They want to deprive Muslims of education. They want to deprive Muslims of opportunities because of their hatred for Islam and for Muslims. But if they had any sense, if they could just control their hatred for Islam and their hatred for Muslims, they would understand that giving Muslims opportunities, for education, for jobs, for work, for prosperity, and so on, that correlates to decline in birth rates. When you deprive Muslims of their rights and you deprive them of opportunities, you deprive them of privileges, you deprive them of education, they just have more babies. There's a correlation between lower income, lower education, and higher birth rates. If you had any sense at all, then you would stop depriving Muslims and you would give them more opportunities and you would make them the most educated people in your society, so that maybe that correlation between low birth rates and higher education and low birth rates and professional qualifications would have an impact on decreasing the Muslim population, decreasing the Muslim birth rate. But you can't do it because you just hate us so much. You just have to, oppress and deny and deprive as much as you can. But in the long run, you're just harming yourself. This is the creme de la creme of the catch-22, is that you're just hurting yourself, and you can't help yourself from hurting yourself because of your hatred for Islam and for Muslims. But in the long term, there is no way around the fact that Muslims are going to be the largest, the most influential, and the most powerful culturally, economically, politically, group in the world, in the global south and on earth. That's an inevitability. The path of Islamophobia and the path of hating Islam isn't hurting Islam, and it's not hurting Muslims. It's only hurting you. It's a dead end. So if you had any sense, India, the BJP and all of these types, and in the West, the Islamophobes, the far right, white nationalists, and so on, your hatred for Islam and your hatred for Muslims is literally destroying your own countries. It's literally destroying the future of your own country. And the inevitable future is going to be dominated by Islam and Muslims. So your hostility towards Islam and Muslims is going to get you nowhere. You're on the wrong side of the direction of history. So better for you to reconcile yourself with the Muslims, reconcile yourself with Islam, and try to build positive relations with the Muslims. Like I said, even if you were doing that out of hostility in the hopes that if Muslims are more prosperous, they'll have fewer babies. But you can't afford for us to even have fewer babies because we're the only ones who are doing it. Enough to keep the earth replenished. So even your capitalist system needs Muslims. Even your capitalist system, even your neoliberal system needs Muslims and needs a replenished population. And nobody is doing it more prolifically than the Muslims. It's really like triple catch-22 situation that they're in. It must be hard. Jazakumullahu khairan wa assalamu alaikum.